Hey guys, it's Joe here. I'm going to be making dinner tonight, and I'm going to try and cook in as much real time as possible. So tonight's dinner was inspired by Thanksgiving leftovers, and I don't mean actual food leftover. I mean things that were around the house that we used at Thanksgiving. My mom made a soup with wild mushrooms in it. There was a lot left. We didn't want soup again, so we're like, well, what are we going to do? So I looked up a recipe for a pasta that was a fettuccine and wild mushroom. So tonight's recipe has obviously fettuccine, it has wild mushrooms. We're going to be using olive oil. We're going to be using, it called for 4 button mushrooms, 4 shiitake mushrooms, a portobello. What I did was, I'm doubling it, but I used what she had left over because it was a larger container. It called for 5 scallions. I couldn't find any good scallions. I had some shallots left over, so I diced that up. Calls for a quarter of a red onion. We had white onions. I'm using up the white onion, so I'm using half a white onion. It called for a half of a red pepper. I had those baby yellow and red and orange peppers that I used when I made that centerpiece, so I'm going to be using a couple of those. 2 cloves of garlic is what I'm using. I'm using some fresh basil. It calls for all-purpose seasoning. I don't even know what that is, so to me that's salt and pepper. I'm going to be using 4 ounces of white wine to deglaze the pan. We're going to be using a little bit of Worcestershire and a little bit of Tabasco and a little bit of parsley. Doesn't sound too bad. So in this pot here I have the fettuccine cooking. Salted my water, brought it to boil, dumped the fettuccine in. So I have this pan here already heating up. I'm just going to never really worry about how much. I'm just going to swirl it a couple times because that's going to be the base of our sauce. So I do want a little bit left. Just want to coat it. And I can tell it's hot because I can already smell that. So I heard the best way to tell when it's hot enough is drop a little bit of water into there. So let's wait for that to come up. I have my Worcestershire. I'm going to take this out of there. And it's sizzling. So I'm going to turn up the pasta because I don't want the sauce and the pasta not to be done at the same time because that would be awful. So, and this is going to be really quick and easy. It's one of those drop and goes because I'm cooking after dinner. It's already 7:30 because I prepped everything. I don't want to be eating at 9 o'clock. So I'm going to first just drop the garlic in there. And I just want to toast it a little bit so it gets that sweet nutty flavor. If you let your garlic go too long, it's going to get burnt, it's going to get bitter, and nobody wants to eat bitter garlic because it's just not good. Turn that up a little bit. Give the pasta another stir. Excellent. So we're going to then just start to add the vegetables. So I'm going to add the onions and the scallions or the shallots. Pepper. And I'm going to add these mushrooms. And like I said, it was a large container. I just chopped up what was left because they were starting to get, a little funky. And speaking of funky, I need to tilt the camera just a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. So all the vegetables are in the pan. And you want to let that cook a little bit because you need them to Well, you need them to saute like the recipe said. You need them to cook down a little bit. But also you want to cook your mushrooms before you start to season them. Because if you do it the opposite way and put the salt on right now, it's going to draw all the water out of there and your mushrooms won't brown. And they're just going to taste raw. They're not going to have a really good developed flavor. You can hear that sizzle. Stir the pasta because we don't want clumps of pasta. Who wants that? And I usually like to wait until the onions get just a little translucent to start to add stuff, because then I know that the onions are done and I know that adding things to that isn't going to compromise your cooking time. Being that this is really colorful too, you could, if you were doing a sit-down dinner, use this as a starter course instead of your main course. Tonight, obviously, it's going to be my main course. Like I said, I doubled this because more pasta is better than less pasta, I suppose. So next I'm just going to add basil to it. And all I really did was just tear it up. And I had a basil that I always buy the basil on the stems if I can. It lasts longer, but it was all starting to wilt down. So I pretty much use all that I have because, again, I'm trying to use up what's left before I go grocery shopping. So just give that a little bit of a stir. And I want this to be cooked pretty well through before I start adding liquids to it, because if you add cold liquids to this pot, it's going to reduce the cooking temperature and they're going to stop cooking. And to saute it, you want it pretty much all the way cooked through. Onion out of the pan, onion out of the pan. And I'm pressing on the vegetables just to make sure that they're starting to get tender. Because if you eat raw vegetables in your pasta, it's kind of like mixing your salad and pasta together. So now I'm going to give my Worcestershire a good shake. Put a couple splashes of that in. Ooh, I can smell that. And Worcestershire and mushrooms pair well together because it both has that umami flavoring that hits your tongue and kind of makes it pucker just a little bit. Add a couple of dashes of a hot sauce. Now this is where it said to add that all-purpose seasoning. No, I don't know what they really want me to use. So I'm going to add some coarse pepper to it. I'm going to add some fresh ground black pepper to it. And I was in a spice shop this summer, I believe. Maybe last summer down in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And I found a black truffle sea salt. So I haven't used it, but I thought, what better place to use it than in a wild mushroom pasta, because, well, black truffles are wild mushrooms. Now the truffle has a really pungent flavor, so I'm going to be cautious of this, not using too much. So we're just going to sprinkle a little bit, maybe one more just to make sure that we get that flavoring in. Give this a good stir. 2 more minutes, just because we want those flavors really developed. And again, the colors in this are really great. This was something that will make a spectacular looking dish in the fall. Doesn't have all those colors in it. So now we're just going to pour the white wine in there. And we're going to make sure to stir that in to get all of those good pieces up off the bottom. Look, it's beautiful. You can see the reds and the browns and the oranges. I know everybody says it, but God, I wish it had smell-o-vision, because this is smelling awfully, awfully good. We're just going to let this cook down a little bit. Let some of the wine evaporate so the marriage of the flavors happen. I'm going to drain my pasta. Guys, this is what's for dinner tonight. Again, it took more prep time to prep it than to cook it. So if you know that you're going to be making this, you can prep it ahead of time. Get home one night, throw everything together. The white wine is starting to sizzle now. This is going to be an amazing dinner. It didn't take much time, and even though it took a little bit of time to prep, it wasn't hard to prep. You can do this. Stay stylish, folks. I'll talk to you soon.